Hey, welcome back to another episode. In this episode, we are going to see what are the prerequisites for building full stack web applications on your local machine. And besides these key technologies that you can see on the screen, there are a lot other things that you need to install and need to be familiar if you want to build full stack web applications and if you want to be full stack developer. So you there are some things which very obvious and very simple, and you can skip those sections. Those are for beginners, and there are some things which you might not know. You can go to those sections directly. So without further delay, let's get started. The first obvious thing that you need to develop all these is the editor. So VS Code is my favorite, and also this is from Microsoft. So you can Google and you can go to their site and download it. If you are, I'm using Mac here. If you are using Windows, it's the same process. Go to their site and hit the download button, and once it's downloaded, you can open it. You can install and open it, and I think it has so many plugins and it has so many extensions. There are so many other editors as well, but um, this is one of my favorite. And also let me show you one of the coolest thing here, which is the color theme. As you can see, you can actually change the theme of the VS Code. So like this, there are so many things that you can do with the VS Code because there are so many extensions and there are so many plugins that you can install. And yeah, it's very cool. So the way you create your first file is go to your file, new create file, and do index.js or any, you can name any file name and create it. That's it. Now we are done with the editor. The next obvious thing is HTML. So HTML is the language designed for the web page. So let's go to Google and let's see what are the famous sites that you can learn HTML from. So when you Google it, so W3 Schools is one of the famous things that you can get started. We're not going through all these on our tutorial, so you can just go through and you can just understand all the basic things from this. And let's copy something here and let's go to our VS Code and let's paste it here. You should name these files as .html. And once you do this, you can just open this with any browser. Open with browser. So once you open it browser, it just opens and you can actually see your first web page. So you can go back to VS Code and edit. For example, whatever you put under between body, that will be displayed on the page. Let's copy this h1 heading tag and put multiple times, and let's reload the page. You need to reload the page to take effect. So yeah, that's is your first web page. Now we have created a web page, but there is no way that you can make this web page colorful just with HTML. So to make this colorful, you need to use one more tool, which is called CSS. CSS is the style sheets that you use along with HTML to make web pages colorful. There are so many online resources for CSS as well. You can just Google it, and if you Google it, so you can find it out. See, W3 Schools is one of them. You can just go through that website and you can learn all the basic stuff about CSS on it. You can even practice by clicking on Try It Yourself button. So let's click on that button, and if you notice, we have a head tag under HTML tag, and also all the styles are placed in between style tag. So let's go back to our VS Code, and this is our HTML that we have written, and let's add some CSS. So as you remember, there is a head tag and style tag. Let's define those styles. Sorry, let's define those tags, and then we have a body and h1 and p tag. Let's define some background colors for all these. So I'm giving background color green to the body and the color white. So this white color is applied to all the text in the body. So h1 I'm giving background color as red. Now p1, sorry, p tag paragraph. So background color yellow. So we have given background colors for each element here. So let's reload and see how it works, how it looks. Yep. So all the background colors, so everything has its own background color. So let's change the color of paragraph. Now let's reload and you can see black text only for the paragraph. Yeah, that's it. So you can practice a lot in this way. You don't have to, you don't have to buy anything to practice HTML and CSS. All you need to do is you can create a file and then you can practice it on your own. So now we have created HTML and CSS. So HTML and CSS will not be enough when you want to build full stack web application. So there has to be some interactivity between the user and the website. So that's when the JavaScript comes into picture. So the JavaScript is a programming language where you can use for both front end and back end. So if you search JavaScript in Google, there are so many resources and you can again open W3 Schools and you can go through all the basics. So JavaScript is a scripting language that is mainly used for web browser in the beginning, but we can also use JavaScript on the server side, which is Node.js. So let's go to some of the sample documents here. So if you look at it, we have a functions, events, data types. There are so many things here. So if you notice, all the JavaScript is placed under script tag, and the script tag should be placed in the body. So let's go to our code and let's start with script tag. Okay, and then whatever you put it here, it will be executed. Browser will execute it, and also console log statements will be executed, and you can the console.message, whatever the message you put, that will be displayed under console here. So we have put hi welcome. You can actually see hi welcome there. And then let's define some code here. So there are two functions from JavaScript where set interval and set timeout. Let's use set timeout. So set timeout is a function. It executes the block of code after certain interval. So here the interval is 3 seconds. So whatever you put in the function, so all that block of code will be executed after some delay. So here the delay is 3000. So what we are doing here, so we are fetching the hello h1 heading by id. So here hello is the id. So we are fetching that element and we are changing the background color of this particular h1 heading. So I'm going to put some brown, let's say brown, and let's copy the same name, same line, and put it again, and copy the welcome id from the paragraph, and let's have this as white, and let's reload the page. If you notice, after 3 seconds delay, you can actually see background changes. So that kind of interactivity, you can get it from JavaScript. In JavaScript, there are so many things. You can have functions. You can write. All the interactivity you can do with your web pages, you will write all that in the JavaScript. There is another programming language that you can use for building full stack web applications, which is the TypeScript. So TypeScript is very similar to JavaScript with better tooling and strong types. So if you are starting web development now, I would suggest you to start with TypeScript because it comes with a lot of other features as well. So let's go to the TypeScript website where you can actually see all the definitions, and also if you look at the site, it can have all the options like interfaces, JSX. So if you are building React application, you can actually see JSX also comes with TypeScript support. So let's click on the playground. So let's see the difference between JavaScript and TypeScript. You can actually choose which version you want to use on the left drop down. So I want to try simple interface where I want to define the simple interface called person, and which has first name and last name. So in JavaScript, you have to define, you can directly assign an object to a person, but in TypeScript, you can actually define what are the fields that person contain. For example, here first name and last name are the fields that person can have. So that's why I defined a type called person, and then I'm actually creating an object of type person. So in this way, TypeScript has very strong types where you there won't be any confusion when you write the code, and also there won't be any compilation errors as well. And let's see how it compiles. Let's add a console statement where I can just log this person object. So I would like to run it. So when I run this, I can actually see the log statement, and let's click on the JS where you can actually see the JavaScript version of the TypeScript. If you compare, it's very similar, but TypeScript comes with a lot of types and better tooling. So we have seen key technologies to build the systems, but these systems has to communicate with each other. Otherwise, there is no use. So that's where the JSON comes into picture. So JSON is open standard file format to transfer the data among systems. So you should be very familiar with JSON because any modern web applications will produce JSON as an output, and it will consume JSON as an input. If you go to W3 schools, you can actually see lot of objects, data types, object methods, and also you can actually see the comparison between JSON and XML. XML is another format where you can transfer the data among systems, but JSON is the lighter version of it. So let's see an example of JSON. First name and last name is a key value pairs. Those are just fields, and address is another key, but value can be object, and also value can be an array. So you can put objects inside array like phone numbers. So I mean, you can create structure like this. You can create nested structure like this, and the JSON structure can be bigger as well. So in this full stack web application, your front end has to talk to your Node.js backend. So front end can be Angular application, React application, or Vue.js application. It can be anything, but these front end and backend has to talk with each other so that they can transfer the data among themselves. So that's where the JSON comes into picture. Here, front end makes the API call to the backend, and backend will send the response to the front end as in the JSON format. Until now, we have seen front end side of things. Let's look at the backend as well. The first thing to look at is Node.js. So Node.js is the JavaScript runtime which runs on the server. So there is an entire episode dedicated to this, how to install NVM and how to install Node.js through NVM. Remember, you have to install NVM first, then through NVM you have to install Node.js. Otherwise, I mean, you can If you are running only one application, that's fine. But if you are running multiple applications and each application needs a different version of Node.js, it is very difficult to manage. So install NVM and then install Node.js through NVM. So installing Node.js is not enough. So you might need to consider having a framework called express.js. So if you are building a small scale application, that's fine. You can manage with just Node.js. If you want to build large scale web applications, you might need express.js framework or any other framework. But in this episode, in this tutorial, we are going to use express.js since it is very minimal and flexible. Node.js web application framework that actually provides a robust set of features for both web and mobile applications. So what it means is, if you want to, uh, your backend will receive the requests. You need to send the responses. You need to create routes. You need to define other stuff. You need to make API calls from your backend. So all these things can be managed by Express framework. So it's very easy to install. If you have Node.js in place, all you need to do is run this command npm install express save. So as you can see, it can be used for both web applications and you can build APIs, and it is very performance oriented, and also a lot of popular frameworks is using this. Let's take a look how it looks in the actual application. So if you go to the API and if you go to the package.json, so basically if, if you install express.js, you will find it under dependencies. And if you go to server.js, you can actually see the import command with require. And once it is imported, you need to define, and you need to assign it to app variable, and also you need to define all your routes as you see here. Now with the help of Node.js and express.js, you build your API. So once you build the API, you need to test your API because your front-end code will call the API. So before you even give this API to the front-end users or front-end consumers, you need to test your API. So Postman is the platform to design, build, and test your APIs. So you need to install this Postman. So if you go to this page, you can actually see the download buttons. When you download and install it, it actually looks like this. And you can even see HTTP webs, all the webs, get, post, all those, and you can put the URL there. And if you are making a post call, you can put the body here based on the API. So you can send query params as well. So let's test one API, which is public API. JSON placeholder is the public API. Let's hit it. If you call this API through browser, you can actually see the whole result. So let's copy it and test it through Postman. So you can see the response here, and if you pass 1, you can get only one response, one object in the response. So that way it will be easy for you to test your APIs with Postman. So this is the tool you might consider installing on your local machine. And while testing, you might need to make so many changes to your API and test it again. So every time you make some changes and you cannot restart the whole thing again and again. So for that, you might need to consider installing this nodemon. So what is this nodemon does is, it actually watches your files and it reloads the server automatically. You don't have to reload and you don't have to do anything else. All you need to do is you make changes on your file and you save it. As soon as you save it, it watches and it will actually reloads the server, so that all the data that all the changes that you've done will be automatically reflected on the API. So go to the nodemon page and you can install globally with this command. Or if you want to install only dev, you can check the second one. And let's go back to our example project where we are using nodemon in package.json. So since it is only used for development environment, you can actually see for the dev command, we are using nodemon, and it is watching the server.js, and also it is watching on the port 3080. And so basically you can make the changes anywhere. It actually looks all the changes, and it actually reloads the whole API so that you don't have to reload or restart again and again. While developing the APIs, you might need to consider externalize all the API secrets or keys from the application code. So without doing that, it is very difficult for you to deploy the API code in different environments. So for this purpose, while developing the API, you might need to consider using this .env library. So what it actually does is, it actually has the file called .env. It takes all the variables from .env file and inject those variables through process.env so that you can read it from that object in the application code. So now let's look at the download page, npm.js page, where you can install .env, and also you can actually see the usage as well. All you need to do is create the .env file and also put this line in the application code. So let's go to package.json in the example project where we install .env, and also go to the server.js. If you notice line number 8 or 9, we are doing this only when the environment is not production. So that means we can only use this in the development environment. And go to the .env file. So this is how you actually define key value pairs. We are defining Mongo connection string here. And the way we read this variable is, if you go to the config.js, dbconfig.js, notice the line number 6 and 7, we are reading through process.env object. So now, until now, we have seen the tools for building and testing the APIs. So when it comes to large web applications, the most important tier or the most important thing is the database and is your data. So when it comes to database in Penstack application, we have to use PostgreSQL. So this is a free and open source relational database management system, which is originally created at University of California, and it has so many features, and we can go through all the features later, but this is the home page, and this is where you need to download Postgres app so that you can run Postgres database on your local machine. So you don't have to create somewhere in the cloud, or you need to maintain a lot of servers. You don't need to maintain a lot of servers to create this, but all you need to do is download this Postgres app so that the entire database server runs on our local machine, so that you can talk to database and you can test the whole application flow end to end on your local machine without deploying your application somewhere in the cloud or anywhere. So, and we need another tool called Sequelize, which is a Node.js package and ORM framework where we can use this to talk to any relational database management system. So it also supports Postgres. So we are going to use this, and this is the home page where you can see all the directions, how to install and all. All we need to do is we need to install this Sequelize package, and also since we are using this for Postgres, you have to install that supported libraries as well. And below is the sample code where how we can connect to the database, and we have this pgAdmin. So we need a graphical user interface where you can actually query all the tables, you can see all the data, and this pgAdmin, which is the management tools for Postgres, and you can install it, and this is the home page, and you can install it, and you can see all the data. This is a graphical user interface for our PostgreSQL, so that you can manipulate or you can query the data on your machine itself. When it comes to shipping your code into production, so you cannot place all your files into the server one by one. You have to bundle your stuff. So that's when the bundler Webpack comes into picture. So it actually bundles all the dependencies and files into static assets. If you look at this, their documentation, what actually does is it actually combines all the files and its dependencies into single static assets. So if, for example, if you have multiple JS files, it actually combine all the JS files into one JS file so that you can actually place only one JS file into the server. If you go to the docs, you can actually see there, all you need to define is entry point and the output file. So Webpack reads the entry point and it compiles all the code and put it into one output file. So we have a webpack config.js in the example project where we are defining entry point server.js because that is our entry point, and we have defined the output file name, which so the whole API code will be combined and put into this API bundle.js. And also when it is being built, all the environment variables are actually injected into the build code so that it can be deployed into multiple environments based on the environment. Deploying containerized applications in production is very popular now. So whenever you ship your app into production, you can create an image, Docker image, and you can deploy this Docker image anywhere. So what it means is, so you have a front end and back end, and you bundle all your code into one package, and you create a Docker image out of this package, and you once Docker image is available, you can actually run the Docker image anywhere as long as Docker runtime is available. So let's go to the Docker page where it mentions develop faster and you can run anywhere. Let's go to the docs. So in the docs, you can go to get started page where you can see, if you are not familiar, you can check all the docs here. So let's go to Docker file in our example project. So if you look at it, we are building multi-stage Docker images. What it means, you build each stage one by one, and then you take all the outputs from each stage and put only those outputs in the final stage. That way we can reduce the image size. So with Docker, we can only create one image, and you can run the container out of that image. But what happens if you want to create multiple containers, run multiple containers with single command, or you can kill all the containers with single command? So imagine if you are running your front end and back end and database with different Docker images and different containers, and every time you want to start your whole application, you have to create image from each, and also you need to run the container from each, and whenever you want to kill the application, you want to kill all these images. So that's when the Docker Compose is really useful, when you want to run multi-container applications with single command, or you want to kill multiple container services with single command. So let's go to their docs. In the docs, you can actually see how to install Docker Compose, how to create Docker Compose file, and the services. All that jargon, you can find it out in this page. So let's go to our example project in which we have defined Docker Compose YAML file at the root. If you look at the YAML file, we have defined multiple services here. We have defined UI service, API service, and DB service. All these services can be run with single command. All these services can be killed with a single command. So that is the advantage of Docker Compose. And we are using white CLI for building Vue.js. So with this CLI, with one command, we can build the entire skeleton of Vue.js application. So we don't have to manually create every file. So once we use this file, as you can see here, it will be, I mean, it actually creates the whole skeleton of the project. So it's routes.js, main.js, and package.json, configurations, everything. It actually creates everything for you. All you immediately you can start developing. And then one more thing, you don't have to use it, but it's very useful when you add this to the project. You don't have to write CSS files or CSS from scratch. So there are ready-made available components. So with this library, you can just use all the components right away. And as you install, it gets added to the dependencies object, as you can see on the image. So these are all the prerequisites.